somewhat at planning as to whether or not a split was even feasible. And at that time, she suggested we wait until the general plan update process was started, and to get in at that time, it would make more sense than looking for a general plan amendment or even going in that direction. Carolyn Logan was unable to be here today. She's in charge of the after-school program for Yokayo School, and she's got 152 little people with her right now. So I hope that it's okay that I'm here, and if you have any questions or concerns, rather than deny this request for reconsideration, I hope we could get more information together for the next go-round. Any comments or questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is in which, recommended for which group?
It's in the second group.
In the second group.
Next speaker, Pamela Rossetti, followed by Estelle Clifton.
I'm here to speak with regard to GPU 45-2007. I'm a wine grape grower in that area and very familiar, and I was surprised when I went online last night and did have an aerial view of it, the agriculture that does exist there. There are the small parcels that were created many, many years ago on Held Road, which is a road. They front on a road, this property. The houses would not. They would be back where the walnut orchard, I assume, currently exists. I was happy to hear that for the greater good of the land, the planning department feels that there should not be any island-type zoning out there. We are already experiencing so many problems trying to raise grapes out there with neighbors and complaints and a constant trespassing type situation, and more density isn't going to help us one bit. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Next speaker, Estelle Clifton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Estelle Clifton. I looked over the packet, and it was a bit confusing what was in the first category, but as far as I understand it, and given my notes here, the property here, 45-2007, well, in general, I could just make a blanket statement that please do not redesignate the agricultural forest lands or the rangelands into residential designation. I'm a person that believes that these natural resources are what make our county economy, and yes, we have some areas where past zoning has divided these areas, but looking through, I would not include 16-2007 as Group 3 or 45-2007. I would just put them in as 4. The same with the range at 10-2007. That would be the Redwood Valley rangeland. Then there was the 20-2007 and 25-2007, which I don't have my notes here which ones those were, and also the 14-2007 in Fort Bragg. The city, I saw, had written a letter to that effect, and that's it. Thank you.
Okay. T. Keith Gurney, followed by Donald Mackin.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Keith Kearney. I'm representing Robert Simpson, who owns the property at 17200 Eel River Road, known as the former LP mill site. You've already had 2 pieces of testimony on this, and hopefully I can answer the questions that were brought up by those folks. This is a property that has enjoyed a very colorful history. At the turn of the century, it was the John Day Resort. For over 50 years, it was operated as a thriving timber mill site. Mr. Simpson's property alone harbored upwards of 37 housing units during the operation of that mill site. The mill site was decommissioned in 1989 and has since been cleaned up at great expense by Mr. Simpson. The history of this application, we originally came through with a request to go to rural community. Since then, since your board's consideration of that request, we've met a number of times with staff. We were attempting to get a rural residential 5-acre designation, and given the firm and fair direction of your staff, we settled upon a rural residential 10-acre minimum designation. We've stipulated to the notion of clustering the allowable density outside the floodplain and voluntarily placing the area of the site that is within the floodplain in a permanent conservation easement that would not be able to be further subdivided once that easement would be filed. It would likely be filed before any application is made for development under this general plan designation. Just so people understand that the correct acreages here, there are 42.35 acres of industrial land currently zoned, 55 acres of forest lands currently zoned. The mill site, ironically, that operated historically was on the forest lands and in the floodplain portion of the property. 43.5 acres of the total acreage is outside of the floodplain, and that is where any development would be clustered subject to future applications and CEQA compliance. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I will say, given the concerns on the part of some of the neighbors, that what is being proposed here, the clustering of 9 home sites with the conservation of well over 50 acres of permanent open space against the Eel River, is far less impactful traffic-wise and any-wise than an industrial use of similar scale and scope, as that has occurred on this site for over 50 years. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions to Mr. Gurney?
Made it in 3 minutes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Donald Mackin, followed by Lloyd Weir.
My name is Don Mackin. I represent JCA Associates, which is 09-2007. Originally, when I spoke before you, I was requesting the ability to put 5 homes on our 14.6 acres, which, as you will remember, there were previously 5 houses when this was a mill, and there was 5 families that were living there. I met with Phil Gorney and Patrick. They were very generous with their time, and at the conclusion of 2 meetings, I came to the conclusion that that vision and that request simply wasn't going to happen, and that being in the aura of the rural residential 10, that I would be going from forest land to rural residential 10. I did not send a letter because I'm a little ambivalent about it, to tell you the truth. I'm giving up certain things, leaving the forest land designation, going to rural residential 10, and yet at the same time there's certainly continuity in having the whole parcel being zoned the same. So I'm supporting Mr. Simpson's application, and I'm supporting the use of our parcel as rural residential 10, and I hope that perhaps sometime down the road we might find a discussion which allows 2 homes under rural residential 10. So of the original 5 homes, we have 40% of the goal. But and that may never happen, and so I'm willing to live with the rural residential 10 zoning.
Mr. Mackin, I have a question. The staff report says to verbally